Hello, Kris, Green Sabre, episode 8, Doom Telly. Thank you to all those that have subscribed and watched these videos. I'm really pleased that they've gone down better than I thought they would. They need to go down better, though. I mean, I need to become an influencer at some point. I mean, if this trajectory continues as expected, I should be in rehab in 3 weeks. But anyway, enough of that nonsense. Today's episode, as I promised, if you looked on, if you know our Faceache or Instagram, various social medias, if you watch them, you will know that I did a little snippet video from last night's non-rehearsal to basically say the next video coming, and it is going to be about non-metal likes of Green Sabre. Now, there were a few tenuous links, but I tried to steer away from anything that were remotely metal rock connected as such. So stuff like Led Zeppelin that I'd probably like to cover at some point, but that's probably a whole different episode. But yeah, anything like that. There are a few tenuous links that you'll notice, but I think that they're far enough away for me to just cover. But yeah, non-metal likes. And this video will hopefully show you the eclectic mix of things that we listen to in Green Sabre, and also our sensitive side. So you can see that we're sensitive souls, as those of you that know us will know anyway, of course. So enough waffling shit. I've got a few to get through, as per usual. So I've got everything prepared. We don't want a Damnation Review My Dying Bride incident where I'm surrounded by paraphernalia, wearing the t-shirt, and almost forgot to talk about them. So anyway, I may live that down at some point, but it'll be a while yet, and deservedly so. Be prepared, Kris. Anyway, right, non-metal likes of Green Sabre. So where to begin? Now, I'm beginning with something that shows me probably how old I am, and my first childhood, and this was the kind of stuff that first got me into music. I remember my uncle Tim, Morecambe based. He's not got internet or anything, so he won't be watching these unless he goes to a friend's house. But anyway, shout out Uncle T. He was a mod, like yeah, back in the day, back in the 80s, Quadrophenia style. I don't think he had the scooter, but yeah, he had all the garb, and I remember I wanted to be a mod. I wanted to be like a scooter boy. That was the first thing, and I'm sure I was only like 5 at the time. It'll have been like, yeah, 1979, 1980, so I'll have been like 4 or 5, and I always remember I had a waterproof coat that was sort of longish, so I wanted it to look a bit like a parka, so I insisted that my mum had put some patches on for me, so I had like the kind of, you know, the Ben Sherman Target, kind of the Who patch, and I had a couple of two-tone things on my waterproof as I wandered around the local area. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. So yeah, what I was going to say is my first sort of musical interest, and this is what created the beast that you see before you, was two-tone, was ska, was this stuff. Now, I've not got the first one yet. I really need to get the Specials debut. But I've got this more Specials. I love this one as well. There's a bit more sort of dub on this, and it's much weirder than the first one. It's not like your straight up kind of second coming of ska, if you will. But there's some great ones on this one, like Stereotypes. I love. Rat Race is on here, is it? No, Rat Race was a single. Enjoy Yourself. Man at CNA. That is the one I was thinking of. Man at CNA is a brilliant song, and it always reminds me of the CNA in Leeds City Centre. It might have even been about that, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so bit of more Specials for you. Love the ska stuff, and I still do. Let me put that over there. A couple of other examples. First Press and Madness. These were the ones that I first got into with Madness, really, in particular this One Step Beyond album. Just great stuff. And I've never seen them live, and I really want to. So that's on the to-do list because they're still touring. A couple of the other Madness that I've got. Second one, absolutely. And third one, that's a decent one for me personally. It all gets a bit Our House and Driving in My Car and all a bit sort of daft after that. But there's some straight up great songs on these first 3 records. Yeah, and I love the ska stuff. I haven't got any beat. I love the beat as well. Mirror in the Bathroom, various others. But Yeah, ska was a big thing for me, and it was the first thing that I latched onto as a kid. Now, there's probably a whole other episode, because I'm a big, for those of you that know me, I'm a big punk oi fan to a degree. I think a lot of oi sounds the fucking same to me, but like punk, like oi, love psychobilly. So like the ska, the psychobilly, the punk oi stuff. There's probably a whole episode in that one that I'll go into at a later date, because I don't have much. I've only got CD of a lot of it. The vinyl's quite expensive. But yeah, that's another subtopic of its own. But I thought I'd mention the ska thing because it was the first real musical style that I latched onto and I wanted to be. I was probably the youngest kid in my school that had a Specials t-shirt. Or was it the Madness one? It might have been the front cover of the Night Boat to Cairo single, you know, where they're all stacked up. Anyway, if you don't know that, you won't. So yeah, first in, ska. Love it. Can't vouch for the rest of the lads, but as you'll notice as the countdown goes on, there's lots that I can't vouch for the rest of the lads, because, like I said, there'd be 3-hour videos if I did them all, so I think I just have to kind of specialise with what I've got in my collection. So you'll have to make do. Okay, coming in next, Side Swerve. The only one I have on vinyl, Radiohead's OK Computer, a seminal album. And I will not be told otherwise. It's an absolute work of genius from start to finish. There's not a bad track on it, apart from maybe the weird little robot voice one. But I'll still listen to it. I love Radiohead. As I say, it's the only one that I've got on vinyl. I've got CD of the Bends, and I don't tend to listen to the debut. Was it Pablo Honey, was it called? It's a bit indie rock. I'll probably go into greater detail maybe later on. But I'm not an enormous fan. There are some bands that you'll see coming up that clearly meet that brief, but I'm not a huge fan of indie rock. I mean, I hated the Stone Roses. I'm an enormous Deftones fan. Why do I keep confusing them? Def Heaven. I'm an enormous Def Heaven fan. And their latest album, Infinite Granite, that was my album of the year of 2021, I should add, has got a real Stone Roses vibe to it, real leaning, lots of it that sound like straight off a Stone Roses record. And I love that record. I fucking hate the Stone Roses, though. I just think they're limp shit. I think my problem with a lot of the Manchester scene and all that was this fake attitude that came with it. Fucking swaggering about nonsense that just didn't look believable at any point. But that's just my opinion. Don't want the fucking Mank Brigade having a go at me now for dissing their boys in their fucking Parker jackets. But anyway, I digress. So a lot of people consider an indie band. I think they're way more than that. And one of my favourite songs is Pyramid Song. It's just a really sort of odd timing and weird symphonic bits sort of looping in and background. I think they write incredible music. And in fact, I should have dug out the There Will Be Blood soundtrack, because Johnny Greenwood, the guitarist in Radiohead, has done some amazing soundtracks, and the There Will Be Blood one is my particular favourite. It's probably down here somewhere. There it is. Yeah, quick, sweet. Yeah. I mean, most of you will have seen the film. It's one of my favourite films ever. I just think it's fucking magnificent. And Daniel Day-Lewis is just captivating performance in that. Stunning. Horrible. But yeah, Johnny Greenwood's soundtrack on this, outstanding. But yeah, I've got a lot of time for Radiohead. I've got to be in that right mood, of course. Depressed, but they work great with... I think there's lots of elements that you can pull from Doom, certainly from the way that we write in Green Sabre anyway. So, they're a big deal to me. So, Radiohead, little side swerve. Again, rock in places, but I think different enough to qualify for this. Now, I'm going to go on to my guilty pleasure. And it's not even guilty at times, because there's some straight up fabulous records. And this, I'll mention Bright Art Drummer, because he's been to see these live, maybe even a couple of times. I've not yet. He absolutely adores them, and I do too. Tears for Fears. The greatest 80s electronic, whatever the fuck they'd be called, new wave, whatever it is. The greatest one of those bands for me. This was like, I got this really cheap. It's like £4 or something. And the record's in amazing, Nick, as you can see. Poor Gift there has got something going on in his... whatever he's called, I've forgotten the singer's name. Anyway, love this album in particular. I do have The Hurting, the debut one, and there's some great ones on there. And what's out for us in the future? We've been we want to cover a track off of this. which we'll get around to at some point, but obviously we've just been sort of rehearsing for minimal gigs that we've had coming up, so we've had to be fairly specific with rehearsals, so we haven't had time in order to nail those set lists. We haven't had time to go through covers really, but we want to do Pale Shelter at some point, and it's sounding really good the brief times that we've gone through it, so watch this space. But Tears for Fears, a big deal for us. Great band. Brian absolutely loves them. And that segues into 80s pop, and that is my guilty pleasure. Not all of it. I'm not talking about fucking Bros and all that god-awful Stock Aitken Waterman shite that came out. Proper 80s pop, back when people wrote proper songs. I know this probably qualifies as like 70s really and stuff, but I think this is an 80s one. But like this one, Avalon, and it's got the More Than This on it. Love that song. And the track Avalon, of course. But yeah, 80s pop. The 7-inch of Africa by Toto. Got as cheap as chips. It was like 49p or something. In fact, it cost like 3 times as much to post the fucking thing. So, but anyway, yeah, great stuff. Always loved the Police as well. Big deal. I think my dad liked them. My dad will come into the equation further down the line here. But yeah, 80s pop, rock, the pop stuff as well, which segues into... I'm going to be doing a video on Green Sabre's favourite video games soon, and 2 games will be very prominent in that. One, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. This is the CD box set that I've got, and probably my favourite game of all time, but I don't want to spoil the countdown. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas CD box set. They're almost faultless, these. There's a few of the classic songs off the soundtrack that haven't made it, obviously, for copyright infringement or blah, blah, and all that shit that didn't make it onto there. But the Grand Theft Auto games were why I love them so much. Not only were the games great, but these 2 in particular, Vice City and San Andreas, was the era that they were setting, that they were deliberately staged. Like Vice City's 1986, so it's kind of the era of metal that I started listening to. So the metal soundtrack on here, who've we got on the V-Rock channel? Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, the Motley Crue when they weren't shite. Autograph, Twisted Sister, Ozzy Osbourne, Anthrax, Slayer, Tesla coming at you live, of course, that's on here. Dave Lee Roth. Absolute classic metal tunes, but I'm not here to talk about them. There's also some great of the pop channels. I think of the Flash, Wave 103, and Emotion, and in particular, Emotion's got, you've probably seen already a few of the records from there. There's More Than This, Roxy Music, there's Toto's Africa, you've got, who else? Squeezer on there, Mr. Foreigner, Kate Bush, and then you've got In Excess, Talk, Spandau Ballet, all that kind of 80s pop. Now, Bri was a big Spandau Ballet fan as well, sort of. You'll notice that it's mainly me and Bri that I'll be talking about with our 80s pop guilty pleasures. We love all this stuff because, of course, it's the era that we grew up. I mean, Bri's like, when was Bri born? 72? Something like that. And I was 75. Sorry for giving your age away there, Bri. But yeah, I grew up when all this music was out. And yeah, I think it resonates from that perspective because I was getting into music as a kid. And it stands up. Yeah, it was the greatest era of pop music for me because it sort of took itself way too seriously. It looks stupid. The videos are hilariously cringy at times. And yeah, it just ticks all the boxes. I love it. You'll probably never hear anything of 80s pop in Green Sabre, unless you try really hard. But yeah, it meant everything to me. And just briefly, I won't go too deeply into these soundtracks because I'm going to cover the soundtracks when I do the video game countdown. But this one as well, San Andreas, it's supposed to be set like 1992, so the music is of its era as well. So it's all the stuff that was in the charts back then, but the rock Tuesday, Radio X is it, or whatever it is. Yeah, the rock channel's great. It's got Helmet on there, Soundgarden, Faith No More, Danzig, Alice in Chains. It's just fucking fabulous. Great soundtrack, and I love all that. I can get lost in that. It's nostalgia. It takes me back. So yeah, 80s pop. Now, I've not done these in any kind of number because there's loads of them, so I'm just doing a sort of rough countdown as how important they are to me as such. 80s pop should have probably been higher. Now, again, maybe some more indie rock, but I'm going to cover this. My Bloody Valentine. I adore this record. I think it's fabulous. And again, people might say, but Kris, you said you hated indie rock. And I do for the most part. But this is ace. It's that melancholy. It's that weird guitar sound that he got. That he got on this, and it's just it's shoegaze, and I do like some shoegaze. I've been told as well that I should really get into slow dive, and I like bits that I've heard, but they're not one that I immediately gravitate to. I think My Bloody Valentine were a lot better at it, or certainly it resonated with me more. I like Mogwai. I'm a fan of Mogwai. I've got nothing of theirs, no records, no CDs. But yeah, I prefer the more melancholy, ambient. And like I say, what he does is guitar, and I love, this is my favourite album of theirs. It's the only one that I've got, but I can listen to it to death, which I have once I finally got an affordable repress of it earlier in the year. Which leads me on to this one, the Lost in Translation soundtrack, one of my favourite soundtracks of all time. In fact, there's probably a video in that. There's probably a Kris's / Green Sabre's favourite soundtracks video. So keep an eye out for that. That might well be coming. So maybe I shouldn't go into too much detail, but Kevin Shields, out of My Bloody Valentine, guitarist, does a lot of this soundtrack. There's a My Bloody Valentine track on here sometimes, one of my favourites. And I just love this soundtrack. I love the atmosphere it creates. I was very lucky enough to go travelling, and we stayed in Japan for a week, in Tokyo and Kyoto. We didn't really venture much further out of there, but me and Tracy had a whale of a time, and it was around the time that this film, Lost in Translation, came out, so it's one of our personal favourites. I can watch it time and time again. I think it's a blistering film, because I love Bill Murray anyway. I think he's great. I love the soundtrack. I love the aesthetic. I love how it looks. You'd see Japan. And it was sort of the reason why we went to a few places over there as well. There was a couple of, like, the crossing there on the street in Shibuya. There's Ginza in there. There's Kyoto and the Heian-Jingu Shrine. So yeah, a lot of great memories, and I love this soundtrack as well. And this is sort of shoegaze, the shoegaze that I love. So I like to think that I do take elements of that I bring into some of the quieter sections of Green Sabre. Again, probably a failed attempt, but yeah. So My Bloody Valentine, Lost in Translation soundtrack, Kevin Shields stuff. Love all that. Now let's move on to some more retro, and this does count as rock, so yeah, this is where the tenuous link comes in. David Bowie. And in particular, these two records. Ziggy Stardust, of course, absolute seminal classic, and another absolute seminal classic, Hunky Dory, the album before Ziggy Stardust. And I don't know, this might be my favourite. I think Ziggy Stardust probably wins it, because I can listen to that all the way through without skipping a track. This one, I think there's like, is it the 8-line poem? And there's another one. That I might skip if I'm not feeling it. But this has got some of my favourite Bowie tracks on it. Life on Mars is on here. Kooks, I love Kooks. My favourite Bowie track, the Bewley Brothers, the last track on this album. Really creepy vibe at places, melancholy, and just fabulous. Really good ending as well. Adore this record. Adore this record. Like I say, 5 years, that's how you start an album. What a track. And there's, like I say, they're all bangers on this. There's not a bad track. I've not got much of the other ones, but I was going to cover Jimi Hendrix, of course. Huge guitar icon. I'll never be able to play like him, and I don't profess to pretend that I can. Electric Ladyland in particular, my favourite. And is it, what's it called? 1893, Merman, whichever one it is, I forget the name of it, but the big instrumentally kind of, what a tune, amazing. And with that, we can probably delve into other 60s stuff. I love the Beatles, particularly when they started taking drugs, because all that Hard Day's Night and earlier shit does absolutely nothing for me. All the jingly jangly, bouncy fucking heady nonsense. No. Rubber Soul onwards, that's when they got interesting for me, the Beatles. Revolver's a cracker. Abbey Road, I love it. Sgt. Pepper, great album. One of the most overrated records of all time, though, because it's not the Beatles' best one. White Album's better than Sgt. Pepper's for me. Even Let It Be's got some great tracks on there, but you can tell that the end is nice. But yeah, love that stuff. Rolling Stones, bit like a stuck record a lot of the time. I felt that Beatles had slight more variety to them than the Rolling Stones did, but the Rolling Stones maybe did some more anthemic tunes. Beggar's Banquet, record, Let It Bleed in particular, some absolute stunners. So yeah, but I don't have a lot of theirs because they're quite pricey to get hold of, or I've not found any decent ones yet. A friend of mine, Dave Winterbottom, shout out Dave, he managed to pick up a really nice copy of White Album, numbered on the front, for like dirt cheap at a booty or something. I never have that look in charity shops and at booties. There's just like fucking endless scratch to fuck Julio Iglesias records and various fucking country compilations and all that awful shite. Whenever I go to these things, I never find what. Yeah, and he found a great White Album. So well done, David. But yeah, that kind of 60s psychedelia. I love all that. And again, that was something that I got into later in the day. It was when I started having a serious cannabis habit back in the days that, yeah, it resonated. It made more sense to me back then. And as mentioned earlier, it was my Uncle Tim. He was another sort of influence on that. But also my dad, because of the records he had at home. And that is why we will swerve into the influence that my dad had on me. And one of the main influences was this chap, Frank Zappa. One of his best records, this one for me, Hot Rats. It's an absolute blinder of a record. Great from start to finish. Jazz fusion, I suppose you could call it. But Zappa always had a little bit more to him than that. I, like most people, probably got into Zappa through his Daft songs. Like fucking Bobby Brown Goes Down. Why Does It Hurt When I Pee? And various other fucking things. And this album, a case in point. But the more I listened to Zappa, I realised it was his musical, it was the instrumentation that there was the most grabbing. I quickly kind of moved on from the somewhat childish comedy songs that he used to do. And songs that probably have not dated brilliantly, if I'm being brutally honest. But yeah, Joe's Garage is one of my favourites as well. Hot Rats, probably my favourite. Joe's Garage, my favourite of which are Acts 2 and 3. The more instrumental parts. And there's one of his greatest guitar pieces, Watermelon and Easter Hay, on here. If you just love ambient, amazing guitar solos that go on and on and on, you won't find finer than that track. And on some of these musical pieces as well, it used to cut the grass, and Pack a Goose are on here as well. Then it ends with Little Green Rose there. But absolutely stunning musical pieces on here. There's another one in the background, Zootalo's. That's 76, I think it was. So when he got more of a kind of the Terry Bozzio's on drums on that one. And yeah, stunning musicianship, great songwriting. I imagine he was fucking horrible to work for, because he was quite the taskmaster by the sounds of it. But rightly so, because they were unrivaled with that. Like I say, jazz fusion, but it was different with Zappa. He had lots of other elements that he pulled in. But staying on the topic of jazz fusion, other ones, and these are ones that had directly got into via my dad. Focus, Hocus Pocus, you'll have all heard the song, off of Saxondale or various other places that it was on. But great jazz fusion, Dutch stuff, fantastic album. This one, you might not know it. If you've heard of Chick Corea, this was his Return to Forever lineup. Now, he had Al Di Meola on bass here, Lenny White on drums, and what's the bass player called? I've forgotten his name. Stanley Clarke. Insanely good record. This was one that me and my brother used to play to death, because it was pure jazz fusion, but some little weird little mood keyboard runs in there and stuff like that. Some eerie passages. I love this record. I can listen. There's, again, not a bad track on this one. It's fantastic. It's the Romantic Warrior record. Now, what ever so slightly spoiled it for me was that this is Chick Corea. This is his homage. The Romantic Warrior was fucking L. Ron Hubbard. This is his homage to Scientology, because Chick was a big Scientologist. And yeah, that slightly spoiled it for me, but I can look past that. This is a great record. If you want to try out some jazz fusion and you aren't sure, fucking check this one out. Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior. Return to Forever's best record, personally, and I won't be told otherwise. Now, another one that I'll just briefly touch on, Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mountain Flame. And the opening track on this, Meeting of the Spirits. If you've watched the video that I did about greatest gigs that I've ever been to, the opening track on this, Meeting of the Spirits, Cynic played. when I saw them at the Rios, and they did a fabulous version of what is an amazing song. Again, John McLaughlin, what a guitar player. No relation, pity. But yeah, great jazz fusion record. So a little bit of a segue into jazz fusion. Moving back on to Tenuous Links, and we're getting towards the tail end of it now, but I just wanted to cover this one. It's not the original press. I think it's a second UK or European press, though. Yeah, it's worth a few quid, but King Crimson, I love this. I would pick Red as my favourite King Crimson record if I absolutely had to choose one at gunpoint, but this is also just magnificent. Lots of other great King Crimson records, though. And amazing guitar work by the guy that's on the Toya videos that you'll see online. But yeah, great record, proggy as hell, and absolutely adore it. I just love the sound that they created, and soundscapes, and just massive. Musicianship second to none as well. But yeah, it was that whole soundscape thing that really pulled me in, and that is, besides metal, I adore that kind of stuff, which leads me to, previously I mentioned on several other videos, but Pink Floyd. And let's go in sort of order of the ones that I've got. The debut, of course, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Now, I love the Syd Barrett stuff as well. I think that there is a definite time and a place for that. Entirely different band, to be quite honest, because Syd Barrett wrote all the earlier stuff. I've not got Saucerful of Secrets, but what I do have is the Relics compilation that's got a bit of both this and Saucerful on it. And yeah, still some of the, I think Syd Barrett had gone fucking Doolar at that point, unfortunately. But yeah, really love the early Floyd. But it's not until we get to Medal and Atom Heart Mother that we really start hearing what I love about Pink Floyd. The massiveness, the epicness of it. And the songs are just like 18, 20 minutes, but that hook you. You're never bored at any point. And Medal was its echoes on the B-side. That's the first real inclination of what you're going to get moving forward. The band talk about this fairly badly, but I think it's fucking great. I love it. I love the symphonic element, because they had like sort of brass and orchestra sections to it. And the title track, Atom Heart Mother, the opener, I think it comes in at nearly half an hour. Again, never bored at any point. Amazing tune. I remember I used to like to have a joint in the bath back in the days. And it would be the perfect length. Getting in, smoking it, being absolutely fucked with the fumes and so on and so forth. Amazing. Yeah, really works. So try that out, or maybe don't. Fire hazard, various other hazards. Don't try it at home, kids. Terrible idea. Ignore me. Dark Side of the Moon, mentioned previously, is one of our influences. And I think you can hear Floyd in our stuff in places. And that's probably my ego talking. You probably can't hear it at all. I probably hope that you can hear Floyd in there. And this one, I'll take it out of its fancy cellophane fucking wrapper, but Wish You Were Here. Probably my favourite Floyd record, if I had to pick one. Just huge, and the subject matter, and I love the way that it all sort of connects. And I suppose concept album in a sense. Wish You Were Here is obviously the one about Syd Barrett and how they lost a friend to the peddlers of drugs, kids. So don't try it at home, as I say. And the other one that I mentioned, Animals. This is all the Floyd that I've got, but Animals is probably my second favourite. Because again, huge, massive, more guitar orientated. And right at the tail end, before they clearly started just fucking despising each other. I mean, I think they already did on Wish You Were Here, to be honest. But Animals is the last. I don't mind The Wall, but it's a difficult listen. And it's one of them where I feel like I've just not got time for. If I want to immerse myself in Floyd, it's going to be either Animals, Wish You Were Here, or Dark Side of the Moon. It's going to be one of those. And I think that's it. I think we'll stop it there. I'm not going to do thousands of videos on these non-metal ones that we do, because I could go on forever, as I usually do. But yeah, I think I've covered all the bases on that one. Like I say, there might be another video basically on punk, psychobilly, and the ska stuff. But that's for another time. But yeah, non-metal likes. I hope there's some in there, and some in there clearly for the older generation. That'll pick up on those. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. A shout out to our new subscribers. In particular, I've forgotten his fucking name now. I should have prepared this earlier. But the Viking, lad from Manchester. I'll make a note of you in the comments because I've forgotten what your tag is now, but I'll put it in comments. Follow him. That going in the comment. Great. Get on like a house on fire in the comments that we've had as well. He did a great Damnation review video, so if you've not seen it, check it out. But yeah, that's it. I was almost prepared for that one. Fucked up right at the end. But yeah, it went quite well. So, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Again, let's throw some surprises in. Not quite sure what episode 9 will be about. But you'll just have to wait and see. So until that point, thank you. Like and subscribe and blah, blah. And I'll catch you next time. Later, guys.